Hello and welcome to the TechBytes audiocast. My name's Tim and I'm from the TechBytes blogazine, and with me is Dr. Roy Shestowitz from the TechBytes website.
It's Friday night and I'm gonna get sauce. I fought the troll and the troll lost. I fought the troll and the troll lost. He tried to boss me and was outbossed. I fought the troll and the troll lost. I fought the troll and the troll lost. Underneath his creeper bridge, hoping goats will cross. Quoting Ashcroft and Tom Ridge, I fought the troll.
Hello and welcome to episode 14 for Monday, the 29th of November. I'm Tim, and with me my co-hosts are Gordon and Roy, and this is a TechBytes show. Today we're going to be looking at the topics that we didn't get round to covering yesterday. We intended to do a discussion on software patents and go into depth about that, but unfortunately the news had us sidetracked for the entire show, as is our wont, and we never got to the time to finish off what we planned to do at the beginning. So without further ado, what we'll start with is we'll go into the discussion about software patents, bring in a few topics about Microsoft and the Linux tax, and how by using Android, you may still be paying Microsoft some money, depending on the phone that you choose to have your Android on. So with that in mind, we'll go over to Roy, who's going to start with some headlines and some titles which are relevant to the whole software patents issue, and we'll start the discussion there. Roy, are you there, and what have you got for us?
Right, so I found a post of yours. I think we talked about this yesterday, about Oprah Winfrey and the Windows Phone 7, yeah? Mm-hmm. Can you just bring people up to date on the...
Yeah, we touched on this yesterday very briefly. Oprah Winfrey was known recently when she was promoting the Xbox 360 in one of her shows. It was a Xbox 360 and Connect package where she gave it out to her studio audience members, much to many people's jubilation in the audience. And it was noted then that it was obvious that she was using the show to promote the Kinect product and the Microsoft 360 console. Recently, Microsoft have had a press release pushing their Bing, as they've been doing in various different ways over the year to try and get some support. And Oprah Winfrey's been wheeled out again for Bing. My question I asked was, when is she going to be doing Windows Phone 7 promotion? It's pretty obvious now, I think, that Oprah is their weapon of choice when they're trying to push a product. So it goes without saying that when we look at some reports of rather dire Windows Phone 7 sales, that Oprah's going to be used again to pimp out the Windows Phone 7. I know there's been a few articles on the net recently about the actual sales of Windows Phone 7, and we've not had any figures to my knowledge, but according to some of the sites, it's Android's outselling it by about 15 times. But again, Microsoft's remaining very tight-lipped about it, and so we can't say for definite what the figures are. Gordon or Roy, I don't know what you feel about this, but one of you wants to come in and continue on.
Yeah, well, the reason I asked you about this is because I did some research this morning. I was trying to get some links together, in addition to yours. You did some nice collection of pieces of news about the phone. What I found was the previous examples where Oprah was doing advertising for Microsoft and for Bill Gates, and I did find the Kinect and the Xbox 360. And one thing I found was a whole bunch of stories about the numbers of sales, which people were talking about yesterday. And as we'll explain later, the reason we bring this up is to show that the only way Microsoft can compete now is using patents. The reason they try to get this phone out is because they do try to compete like a normal company, not as a patent troll which has no actual product to compete with, but it's just a company with patents that goes around and saying, well, we invented this, or we own your code. Now, what I did found, actually, I think I told you earlier about the ratio 15:1 in terms of sales. So Android is outselling, for all we know, Windows Phone 7 by a ratio of 15:1, and that's despite the marketing which goes on for Microsoft. So that's also kind of an unfair comparison if you consider the fact that you compare a product that sometime during its lifetime, and then you look at something which is being advertised at a budget of $500 million just for marketing. So what I also found was the initial numbers of sales, and I found certain people saying that this may lead to the departure of Steve Ballmer. So he admits this is the future of the company. So if they cannot offer a lightweight replacement for Windows that has a reasonable amount of software and games and things like that, then they have no ways of competing in tablets and in some notebooks to a certain extent because the other things are too heavy. And this is when they turn to patents, and they increasingly sue more companies, and they sue with more patents, and they try to look for new ways of carving revenue out of somebody else's sales, and at the same time trying to make more expensive the competition.
I mean,
I was going to say, one of the things that's kind of interesting when you look at it from Microsoft's thinking on the phones is the little walled gardens that each of the different things try to create. Apple have got their own walled garden that people actually want to use. I mean, not me personally, but people who like Apple products, they buy into the whole Apple lifestyle. So they like iTunes, they like Safari, they like the whole Apple ecosphere. And the same with Android, with Google. People who, generally speaking, people who use Android phones like the whole Google infrastructure, the Google Mail, Google Docs, everything YouTube that goes with that. And it's one thing to set up by default a kind of walled garden in each of those systems for people to use and integrate it really well with those devices when those are services that people actually want to use and already have some presence in. It's a totally different thing when Microsoft see that and say, that's lock-in, we like lock-in, we've always liked lock-in, we'll apply it to the phones, but we'll apply it around the live accounts. So we want people to have MSN, you're not going to get Google Mail on here, son, don't even think about it. We want you to use and sign up to our own live mail, our own MSN services, our own Xbox Live, our own Exchange. We're essentially locking you in on our own services as a kind of another walled garden. And that's very, very naive and very, very strange that they assume that they are still the hot thing. And they're very, very much not, and unless you've got a kind of loyalty to Apple, then generally speaking, you use Google stuff. And then outside of that, you've got Twitter and Facebook and whatever. People don't want to use Windows or don't want to use Microsoft services. So they're not tied into that, and they're sure as hell not going to go and sign up for all of those services just so that they can use the phone. They want to use Google Mail, they want to use Twitter, they want to use Facebook, all that type of stuff. And Microsoft are going to fight against that. So as far as the sales ratio is concerned as well, all I see is people want Android, people want the iPhone. Even the rest are very much way down the pecking order. That's not just Windows 7, or Windows Phone Series 7, Phone Series 7, whatever it is. That's all of them. The two kings are Android and the iPhone. So.
You see, what I saw with the Apple products, and certainly the way that I've seen, or I believe Microsoft to try and emulate Apple, Apple had one other bonus, which maybe now Android is just starting to get. But Apple was seen by a lot of the mainstream audience who don't have a technological interest, as it were, for want of a better word. And Apple was seen as a fashion symbol. And I think that contributes to a lot of Apple's popularity, regardless of the services that they offer. If you just ask any of your peers or anybody you know, what type of product they want hanging out their back pocket. Do they want an Apple iPhone, or would they like a Microsoft phone? And I don't think there's many people, if any, that would want or see Microsoft logo as being a fashion accessory and a sort of symbol of status, which is what I think Apple sells a lot of units